With the Stanley Cup playoffs right around the corner, usually the main talk of the NHL and hockey in general is the upcoming Stanley Cup playoffs. And while, yes, that is a massive and major talking point amongst the NHL right now for obvious reasons, but another big talking point as of late has been the coaches. A little bit ago, we saw the Vegas Golden Knights kind of come out of nowhere and shock everybody by firing Bruce Cassidy and bringing on John Tortorella, even though Vegas is still in a playoff spot. And then just yesterday, on Easter of all days, the New York Islanders announced that Patrick Waugh was going to be let go and Peter DeBoer was going to be coming in. And at the time they made that decision, the New York Islanders were still in a playoff spot. But obviously, with how the Metro Division and the Eastern Conference in general has been this entire year, one win from Philadelphia put them in the playoff spot and the Islanders back out of it. So that got me thinking, what other coaches around the NHL should be kind of concerned about their jobs right now? We're going to start off by talking about the kind of obvious ones, and there are two that immediately come to mind: Craig Berube in Toronto and Sheldon Keefe in New Jersey. Obviously, both have had disastrous seasons so far, but at least the New Jersey Devils started off strong and even looked like they were going to possibly be a Stanley Cup contender until injuries started up and that completely just derailed their season to the point where they just could not recover. Toronto, on the other hand, their season has not been good from start to finish, and it somehow has managed to get even worse as the season has gone along. So I think it's pretty obvious that at least Craig Berube is for sure most likely going to be let go at the end of the season. Sheldon Keefe, I'm not entirely sure about. I do feel like they are going to eventually move on from him, but given the fact that they did start the season out hot, makes me feel like they could possibly hold on to him for yet another season and possibly giving him one last go at it. But when it comes to Sheldon Keefe, I think if I had to lean either way, I'm gonna lean towards him being let go. So those are again your two obvious ones in my mind at least. I'm sure there is another one out there that I'm probably just not thinking of right now, but the first two that came to my mind were again Craig Berube in Toronto, Sheldon Keefe in New Jersey. I think those two are kind of the obvious ones to be let go first. Now let's go on to the three teams that I picked for this list. All three of these teams are currently either fighting for a playoff spot or in a playoff spot at the time I'm filming this video. And we are going to be starting off by talking about Todd McLellan in Detroit. Todd McLellan was hired in Detroit in 2024 and has obviously not made the playoffs since he got hired. And this year looked like it was going to be the year that Detroit was going to finally get back into the playoffs. And they still might. However, after being in first place for most of the season, after the Olympic break happened, things just went downhill quickly. And again, at the time I'm recording this, they are currently out of a playoff spot. Again, that could change with the way the East is this year. This could change by time this video is even a couple days old. But the reason why McLellan is on here is because, again, they were in first place, comfortably in first place, and it all just fell apart from there. And in my eyes, that could be looked as something that you just simply can't bounce back from. And obviously, when you have a team that makes or misses the playoffs, a lot of discussion goes around with either the coaches or the general managers. And talking about the general manager, Steve Yzerman in Detroit, I don't think they're ever going to fire him, even though the Yzer plan has not really worked out so far. Obviously, I don't think Detroit is going to fire Steve Yzerman because it's Steve Yzerman in Detroit, and doing that would be downright sacrilegious in some eyes. So because I see Steve Yzerman as this kind of untouchable figure in Detroit, I think it's going to end up being Todd McLellan, who, if Detroit doesn't make the playoffs, could be going other ways. The next one that I have is Chris Knobloch with the Edmonton Oilers. Knobloch was hired in 2023 largely because he was Connor McDavid's junior head coach, so there was a history between him and McDavid, and obviously they were trying, and still should be trying, to please Connor McDavid in any way they can. And Knobloch in Edmonton hasn't been this complete and utter disaster like some of the other instances have been. Obviously, Edmonton going to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, almost winning in 2024, mind you, being down 3-0 to Florida, coming all the way back, forcing a Game 7 before ultimately losing there. But obviously, this season has not been the best for Edmonton. Obviously, they have struggled here and there, but they are still comfortably in a playoff spot. They're leading the Pacific Division at the time I'm making this video. But the Pacific Division, which Connor McDavid called a pillow fight, obviously, is not the strongest of divisions. A little bit ago, there was a game where Tampa Bay went into Edmonton, kicked the snot out of the Edmonton Oilers, and Connor McDavid had some very interesting words to say, talking about just how well coached Tampa Bay was. And of course, people took that as him calling out his coach and all that. So that sparked a lot of debates on whether Knobloch was going to survive this season or not. And honestly, you could go either way with this one, and I probably wouldn't necessarily argue too much about it because obviously, I do think Chris Knobloch is still a good coach. Obviously, you don't make it to two Stanley Cup finals by coincidence. Obviously, it helps having Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but you still do have to have a very good coach calling everything. So while I do think Knobloch is a good coach, and I do think that a good playoff run likely means he stays, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Edmonton ends up having kind of a dud in the playoffs this year and they end up letting him go. The last one that we're going to be talking about is Andre Turingi from Utah. And I apologize if I butcher his last name. I've never once been able to pronounce his name, so I do apologize for that. But he was hired by the Arizona Coyotes way back when in the 21-22 season. Obviously, he did not lead the Arizona Coyotes to a playoff berth, and so far with Utah, they missed the playoffs last year. They are on the verge of being a playoff team this year, but depending on how the rest of the season goes, if Utah doesn't make it this year, I do think that he could be on his way out. I think Utah is in a very interesting place because I still think that they are trying to create that Utah Mammoth identity and trying to kind of shed all the negativity that came with the Arizona Coyotes. And obviously, yes, Bill Armstrong was the general manager with the Arizona Coyotes when they did make the move to Utah, but I feel like he's done a pretty good job. You take a look at the moves that he made last year, bringing in Mikhail Sergachev, this year, bringing in Mackenzie Weegar. He's made some good moves to help this team become a playoff team. So the fact that they are still kind of teetering on that bubble leads me to believe that if they don't make the playoffs, it could be a different coach in Utah come next season. And like I talked about earlier with Steve Yzerman in Detroit, obviously the general manager is in charge of everything, and he should be taking a fair amount of blame if the team doesn't make the playoffs. But again, I don't see Detroit firing Steve Yzerman even if they miss the playoffs again. And if you want to take a look at Edmonton right now with Stan Bowman, Edmonton's biggest problem has been goaltending, and he tried to fix it, bringing in Tristan Jarry, and that hasn't necessarily helped, but he did make an effort at the very least to try to attempt to fix the goaltending situation. And he also has made some good moves here and there that has brought Edmonton to back Stanley Cup Finals appearances. And I think the same can be said for Bill Armstrong in Utah. I think he has done a very, very good job at bringing in new faces and kind of trying to shed again the negative image that was the Arizona Coyotes. So, because some of these general managers have done a good job, I think it's going to end up falling on the coach and they're going to end up being let go, unfortunately. And with some of the names that are out there right now, Bruce Cassidy just became available. Patrick Waugh is out there now. I don't think Patrick Waugh gets hired anytime soon, if ever again, in the NHL. But there's also Peter Laviolette that's still out there. So there are some big names out there still. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if we see a lot of coaches being changed this season. So this is where I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about my list, and let me know if you think that there are any other coaches out there that should be let go if their team makes the playoffs and doesn't go on a big run, or if they just miss the playoffs entirely. As always, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section, and while you're down there, swing by the description and click the Linktree link. That is the only link in the description for a reason. That is because it'll take you to all of the social media platforms for this channel. Currently, right now, we are only on Instagram and X. The Instagram page does get a little more tender love and care, because that is how this entire page started in the first place. So if you do enjoy these videos and you're looking for some extra content, again, Linktree link in the description. It'll take you to wherever you want to go. So with all that said and done, that is going to do it for this video here. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button. If you really enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Again, both are free. Both really help out the channel a lot. And of course, if you have made it to this point of the video, I want to say thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your busy day to watch these videos here, because it genuinely does mean the world to me. And as always, stay tuned for more hockey and jersey content coming in the future. We'll see you next time.